בוקר טוב לכולם, אנחנו מתחילים. Good morning. I'm excited and honored to open our conference. גזענות, אמפתיה ומה שביניהן, קריסתה של החברה ופוטנציאל השבתה של רוח האדם. Between racism and empathy, the collapse of the society and the potential for restoration of human spirit. I'd like to invite Dr. Boaz Shalgi, head of the program of psychotherapy at the Tel Aviv University Faculty of Medicine, to say greetings and opening remarks.
תודה עופרה. I would like to welcome, good morning everyone. I would like to welcome our distinguished guests, Professor Thomas Kohut and Professor Stephen Ashheim from the Hebrew University, and thank you both deeply for agreeing to participate in our conference today. I know that this is your first visit to Israel, Professor Kohut, and we are delighted and honored that we have the privilege of hosting you here at the psychotherapy program of Tel Aviv University to hear and discuss your thoughts. I would also like to thank Dr. Ofra Cohen-Fried and Ranan Kulka for their participation and most valuable contributions to today's conference. A special thank to Dr. Gabi Mann, the head of the Self-Psychology and the Therapeutic Action Track that is hosting today's conference, for initiating, organizing, and putting so much time and effort, as well as enthusiasm, thoughts, and creativity to make this day unique and important as it is. A huge thank you, Gabi, on behalf of us all. I would like to thank Hagit Zon from the Program Steering Committee for her generous and useful help in organizing this day. And of course, our beloved administrative staff, Shosha Viram, Shbineהן, and Galit Ben Yehuda, those who without their empathy to all of our needs, whims, and wishes, nothing could take place here. The title of the conference seems to hold within it one of the most essential and ultimate contradictions in the human soul and history. In the Webster Dictionary, racism is defined as a belief that race is the primary determinant human traits and capacities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. And at the other pole of the human way of being and experiencing, empathy is defined as the action of understanding, being aware of, being sensitive to, and vicariously experiencing the feelings, thoughts, and experience of another. Racism and empathy. It seems that there is no nation that did not struggle to find its way between these extremities, no individual who has not had to wrestle, both externally and internally, with those two powerful, sometimes subjugating ways of feeling ourselves and our fellow human beings. So much had been said and written about the horror of racism and about the mutative and curative power of empathy to grapple with this horror. I would like, with your permission, to choose one quote that I know had a sort of transformative influence on many, many people, as well as myself, when first encountering it. The quote is from the famous 7-hour closing speech of Clarence Darrow in the trial of Ocean Sweet. Dr. Ocean Sweet was a member of a black family who, together with a few other black families who were the neighbors, reacted with force against a white mob trying to evict them from their homes in a white neighborhood in Detroit. When the mob tried to forcefully evacuate his family from their house, Sweet reacted by shooting and killed Leon Brainer, who participated in the violence against his family. Dr. Sweet was put to trial for murder. Darrow's closing speech echoes throughout the 20th century and even today, both in the United States and worldwide. Darrow's words: I do not believe in the law of hate. I may not be true to my ideals always, but I believe in the law of love. And I believe you can do nothing with hatred. I would like to see a time when man loves his fellow man and forgets his color or his creed. We will never be civilized until that time comes. I know the Negro's race had a long road to go. I believe that the life of the Negro race has been a life of tragedy, of injustice, of oppression. The law has made him equal, but man has not. And after all, the last analysis is, what has man done? I know there's a long road ahead of us before we can take the place which I believe we should take. I know that before us there's sorrow, tribulation, and death. I'm sorry. I would do what I could to avert it. I would advise patience. I would advise toleration. I would advise understanding. I would advise all of those things which are necessary for men who live together. Clarence Darrow, Detroit, 1926. I hope we will all have an interesting and illuminating day in this important conference.
Thank you, Boaz. I invite Gabi Mann, head of the program of cell psychology and the therapeutic action, to say opening remarks.
בוקר טוב לכולם, אני שמחה לראות פה את כולכם, אבל אני מיד עוברת לאנגלית. Good morning to you, all of you. I'm really glad that we managed to get here on time, on place, and I would like to say a few words. First, I want also, as Boaz did, to welcome our guests, Professor Thomas Coate and Professor Stephen Ashheim, to our conference. I'm delighted that both these leading historians agreed to join us today. I also welcome Helga Heise, an analyst and friend from Germany, and all of you students, faculty, IGUD members, and guests who are here to reflect together on one of the burning issues of our time, racism and the restoration of human spirit. This is my opportunity to thank the administrative staff of the psychotherapy program, Shbineהן, our secretary, Gilit Ben Yehuda, and Shosh Aviram. Also, Galit Son, who is in charge of conferences for the program. Also, I wish to thank Elinor Lux, who helped in advertising this event. Special thanks to Boaz Shalgi, who answered all questions, and there were many, and resolved the issues that needed attention. Thanks to Ra'anan for his devotion to this program and his gracious support. And last not least, thanks to my dear colleagues in the teaching committee, Esti Dinur, Tali Oron, Galia Arieli, Orli Shoshani, and Rachel Kela, who helped conceive the topic of this conference. In October 1970, in his lecture in Germany, Heinz Coate addressed the question whether intensive investigation of the inner life of man would be justified with so many troubles and burning issues around. He wondered what was the contribution of psychoanalysis to civilization and human existence. In certain key areas, he felt that psychoanalysis could make a substantial contribution to humanity. He thought that inquiries in the therapeutic realm of the individual would offer insight into the general phenomena of human aggression and violence. The guilt of the many for the horrors of the Nazi Germany, he said, was not simply the guilt of the individual, but it was widely, indeed universally, shared guilt. In 1971, Coate engaged in a courageous project to understand human rage, both on the level of the individual and in history. He presented thoughts on narcissism and narcissistic rage, and brought together years of reflection on aggression in the individual and in the group. He now deliberately disagreed with Freud. War, intolerance, and persecution are not a result of regression or a collapse of sublimation, as Freud indicated in his correspondence with Albert Einstein, Why War and Civilization and Its Discontent, but is an orderly and organized tendency in which perpetrators are convinced about their greatness and are proudly devoted to archaic omnipotence. We do not regress to rage, he claimed. The phenomenology of rage derives from a desperate need for revenge, a need for righting the wrong in the pursuit of one's goals. It can be observed in individuals and works at the collective level too. Self-psychology can analyze the self of the individual, and more so, it can throw light on what Heinz Coate defined as the group self. The group self provides a deeper understanding of leadership, whether charismatic and creative, or charismatic and destructive, as we have seen in the 20th century and we see nowadays. The group self is established and safeguarded by the image of the leader, whom all members hold in common as the collective ego ideal. Leaders, much like analysts, evoke transferences and use empathy to implement healing processes for the individual or the group self, or they use empathy to induce in the group feelings of omnipotence and destructive ideas. The danger arises when charismatic leaders possess, I quote, unshakable self-confidence. Such leaders have few feelings of guilt, no shame, and an absolute lack of empathic understanding for needs, rights of other human beings. They understand the environment in which they live as an extension of their own narcissistic universe. This peculiar empathy puts them in direct touch with the archaic needs of the fragmented group self. Thus, one can analogize the self-needs of the fragmented individual who is guided by grandiosity and the group self when in crisis. The glue of a broken individual as well as a fragmented group is rage in its organized form. With this perspective in mind, Heinz Coate confessed, "I am not a historian, unfortunately." He believed the integration of self-psychology into history was a challenge for the future. Self-psychology is ready to offer a profound understanding of the narcissistic vicissitudes between idealization and grandiosity in the individual and in the group within the axis of time. Today, we will examine the link between the function of the analyst and the function of the historian. Both are concerned with listening and looking at processes. The analyst looks at the fragmented individual self and tries to determine where the nuclear program of the self was derailed. The historian looks at the fragmented group self and offers his or her perspective on the derailed nuclear program of the group. Both apply empathy to function as self-objects who strive to restore a sense of continuity and regain creative living. Heinz Coate suggested we must follow the road of courageous determination to release ourselves from catastrophes of the past and find new ways. Real heroes, he argued, hold on firmly to certain core ideals, even in the face of threat, and gather their courage in this way. I hope we have a productive and interesting conference. Thank you.